A struggling nurse aided a man in tattered clothes. Unaware he was a concealed billionaire who would return months later to propose. Rain pounded the roof of Eastfield General Hospital with relentless force, as if challenging the old structure's endurance. It was nearly midnight, and the emergency room buzzed with chaos, overworked nurses pushing gurneys, doctors barking orders, and anxious families shouting to be heard over the storm. Through the sliding glass doors, the tempest raged, lightning casting stark shadows across the waiting area. Sophie Bennett, a 25-year-old nurse, nearing the end of an exhausting double shift, felt every muscle in her body ache. She'd been on her feet for nearly 16 hours, handling everything from fractures to fevers. Despite her fatigue, she pushed it aside to face the next wave of arrivals. Her ponytail sagged, hair clinging to her forehead, in the humid heat clashing with the hospital's frigid air conditioning. Outside, an ambulance screeched up, its red lights glinting off deep puddles as paramedics wheeled in more patients. Sophie darted between beds, checking for lines, measuring vitals, and offering comforting smiles where she could. "Hey, Sophie," shouted Dr. Mitchell, a middle-aged physician with worry carved into his face. "We've got a potential cardiac case by the entrance. Go check it out." She glanced across the crowded corridor. A man huddled by the wall, drenched from the rain, wearing tattered clothes and clutching his chest. He appeared to be in his mid-30s, hair flattened, water streaming off his sleeves. One of Sophie's colleagues, Clara, gave him a scornful look. "Another homeless guy," Clara muttered, rolling her eyes. "Probably just wants a warm bed on a stormy night." Sophie bristled at the comment. "He's a patient," she said firmly. "I'll handle this." Without waiting for a reply, she hurried over. Up close, the man's lips were tinged blue, his eyes wide with pain. Sophie knelt beside him, her scrubs soaking at the knees from the wet floor. "Sir, can you breathe? Are you feeling pain anywhere besides your chest?" He tried to speak, but only a ragged groan escaped. Sophie gently gripped his arm. "Let's get you inside." Dr. Mitchell and Clara exchanged glances, but Sophie ignored them, helping the man into a wheelchair. Every part of her ached from overwork, yet adrenaline drove her forward. She navigated him through the throng of sick and injured, found an empty exam bay, and drew the curtains closed. Lightning flashed through a high window, illuminating the man's pale face. Sophie grabbed a fresh towel, pressing it against his soaked hair and shoulders. "My name's Sophie Bennett," she said softly. "I'm a nurse here, and I want to help you." The man shivered, exhaling a shaky breath. "Thank you," he managed, voice raw. At that moment, a dismissive voice cut through the curtain. "Sophie, leave him. We're too busy for freeloaders tonight," came a colleague's scornful remark from the corridor. Her cheeks burned with indignation. She wrapped her stethoscope around her neck, ignoring the noise. She'd seen too many patients dismissed, because they didn't fit a convenient mold. "It's all right," she reassured the man. "We'll figure out what's causing this." Sophie slipped the stethoscope over his chest, hearing rapid, uneven heartbeats but no clear sign of a life-threatening issue. Next, she took his hand to check his pulse. Her brow furrowed, his skin was smooth, unusually so, not like the rough, calloused hands she associated with those living on the streets. A subtle unease crept through her mind. This doesn't add up. Still, he was in distress, and that took priority. "Let's get you warm and figure out what's going on," she said, focusing on her task. In the background, thunder rumbled like distant drums, as if the night crackled with anticipation of something extraordinary. Sophie couldn't pause to dwell on the man's oddities. The ER was stretched to its limits, and she had too many tasks. Still, she slipped back to his cubicle every few minutes, checking vitals, administering oxygen, and coaxing him to describe his symptoms. Between visits, her thoughts turned to her own struggles. She'd become a nurse out of compassion, but her finances were dire. Her mother, Margaret Bennett, battled a degenerative nerve condition, requiring costly treatments not fully covered by insurance. Month by month, Sophie's paycheck drained into prescriptions and specialist bills, leaving barely enough for rent and groceries. Late that night, after ensuring the man's vitals stabilized, Sophie scrounged a snack from the hospital vending machine, a packet of crackers and fruit juice, paid for with her last crumpled dollar bills. She hated admitting how close to the edge she was. Her fridge at home was nearly empty, and payday was a week away. The man's eyes opened as she returned, weak but conscious. He tried to sit up, wincing from dizziness, Sophie pressed a hand to his shoulder, urging him to rest. "We think you're severely dehydrated, and your blood sugar's dangerously low," she explained, placing the crackers and juice on a tray. "This should help for tonight." His gaze flickered between the meager offering and Sophie's tired, compassionate face. He swallowed, words catching in his throat. "Thank you." She helped him sip the juice. In that moment, she noticed something else, despite his exhaustion. There was a dignity in his posture, a careful articulation in his voice that clashed with his ragged attire. Still, it wasn't her place to pry. People ended up on the streets for countless reasons: tragedies, mental health crises, job losses. Sophie had learned not to judge. "Don't talk too much," she told him, adjusting his pillow. "Get some rest." He obeyed, but before she left, his voice emerged in a soft rasp. "Not everyone would do this for me." Sophie offered a gentle smile, feeling heat rise in her cheeks. "Everyone deserves kindness," she said. He closed his eyes, as if shielding an emotional response. A nurse from the next bay called for Sophie, pulling her back into the chaos. As she rushed away, she couldn't shake the sense that there was more to this man's story. Hours later, as the hours slowed, she checked his cubicle again. He was sitting up, nibbling crackers, looking slightly better. His posture struck her as refined, contradicting his appearance. He caught her gaze and murmured, "You're unusual." Sophie's cheeks warmed. "Anyone would do it," she said, shaking her head. He disagreed in a hoarse whisper. "No, not just anyone." Confusion and curiosity pulsed through her, but duty called, and she nodded politely before slipping away. By dawn, the storm had calmed, replaced by the routine bustle of shift changes. Sophie's eyes stung with fatigue, but she headed to the man's cubicle, feeling responsible. She wanted to schedule tests, maybe consult a social worker about shelter referrals. But when she drew back the curtain, the bed was empty. On it lay neatly folded hospital scrubs she'd given him. His battered jacket was gone, and so was he. Sophie blinked in disbelief, checking the hallway, triage station, and bathroom. Nothing. Other nurses, busy with shift change, shrugged or offered cynical remarks. "Told you he'd vanish," Clara said, flipping through a clipboard. "These people always slip away. They never wait for a billing conversation." She snorted, hurrying off. Sophie's chest tightened. He wasn't well enough to leave. He needed more tests. Approaching Dr. Mitchell, she got a neutral shrug. "If he was stable enough to leave, we can't stop him. We're not a detention center." Though technically correct, the nonchalance infuriated her. She felt protective of the man whose name she didn't even know. Why would he slip out without a goodbye or final check? After clocking out, she scoured the hospital grounds. The sidewalk was damp, but there was no sign of him. Cars zoomed by under the drab dawn sky. Defeated, she boarded the bus to her tiny studio apartment, leaning against the window. Every bump made her eyelids heavier, but thoughts of the mysterious patient kept her awake. Who was he? Where would he go in such fragile health? At home, in the faint morning light, she saw her mother's photo on the coffee table, a reminder of the steep medical bills. Sighing, worry for her mother and the missing patient swirled in her chest. Weariness overcame her, but she couldn't shake the feeling she hadn't seen the last of him. Part of her felt foolish for hoping. As she collapsed onto her bed, she whispered a prayer for his safety and her own strength. Cure system. Strength. Sophie's days blurred into a cycle of work and worry. Her colleagues teased her about searching the ER for the missing man, but she eventually stopped asking. Still, in quiet moments, she glanced at the entrance, half expecting him to reappear. Her personal life teetered on the edge. Rent, groceries, and her mother's escalating medical bills consumed her paycheck. Margaret Bennett's degenerative condition required experimental therapies, and Sophie took on extra shifts to afford them. 3 weeks later, a minor charting error led to a formal reprimand and a temporary pay cut. In the staff cafeteria, Sophie stared at the HR memo, dismayed. The pay cut meant she'd struggled to cover her mother's medications. A co-worker, Nurse Lily, patted her shoulder. "I'm sorry, Sophie, they're cracking down. It's unfair." Tears pricked Sophie's eyes. Her phone buzzed. Dr. Ethan Parker, her ex-boyfriend, was calling. "We need to talk," he said coolly. "Meet me outside the staff entrance in 10. Outside, Ethan leaned against his luxury car, his expression a mix of smugness and fake sympathy. "Heard about your pay cut. This hospital's rough, especially if you lack advantages." He gestured at his car. "If your finances are in shambles, I can help." Sophie's suspicion rose. "What's the catch?" He stepped closer. "Come back to me, Sophie. We were good together. My family has connections. My dad's on the hospital board. We could get your mum better care." Her stomach twisted. Once, she might have been tempted, but she knew Ethan's manipulative ways. "I'm not for sale, Ethan," she said calmly. "I'll handle my mum's care myself." He laughed coldly. "On your own, with a pay cut. You're fooling yourself. Who'll bail you out? Some homeless guy from the ER." His words stung, reminding her of the stranger. Furious, she walked away. "You're making a huge mistake, Sophie," he called. "Pride won't pay the bills." Tears pricked her eyes, anger and hopelessness mixing. That night, her mother, noticing her distress, apologized for being a burden. Sophie held her hands, insisting it wasn't her fault. In her bedroom, staring at mounting bills, she felt trapped. Her mind drifted to the stranger's gentle eyes and gratitude. "Why am I thinking about him? He can't solve my problems." Yet, she wished for a miracle. A week later, Sophie woke before dawn after a late shift, pulling on a worn sweater to fetch the mail. Among the usual bills, a plain envelope caught her eye. No return address, just her name, Sophie Bennett. Heart pounding, she opened it. Inside was a $50,000 cashier's check and a typed note, "For your mother's care. Thank you for your kindness, a friend." Sophie gasped, flipping the check for signs of forgery. It looked real. Trembling, she called the bank, which confirmed its validity. Tears welled up. The note's words echoed the stranger's gratitude. Could it be him? His smooth hands and dignified bearing flashed through her mind. Relief and suspicion mingled. She called Lily, who squealed, "This is fate, Sophie. That guy you helped must be loaded." Like those stories where a disguised millionaire tests people's compassion. Sophie laughed but couldn't dismiss the idea. Later, the hospital announced its annual charity fundraiser, lavish event. Few nurses attended due to the cost. The board secretary approached Sophie with a personal invitation, courtesy of an anonymous sponsor covering her fee. The note's words resurfaced. "A friend." Could it be the same person? Hope flickered at the fundraiser, in a borrowed navy gown. Sophie felt out of place at the Eastfield Grand Hotel. Orchestral music played, and servers carried champagne. She spotted Ethan scanning the crowd, his eyebrows rising at her presence. She looked away, avoiding him. The host, a polished board member, welcomed the crowd. "Tonight, we celebrate those who go above and beyond for our hospital's mission, caring for all, regardless of financial status." Sophie scanned the room for the stranger. Midway through, the host announced a special guest, a philanthropist, who's made a significant donation for patient bills, Mr. Nathaniel Hayes. Polite applause followed as a tall, broad-shouldered man in a sleek tuxedo took the stage. Sophie's pulse raced. His jawline, his warm brown eyes, were strikingly familiar. His voice, resonant yet gentle, echoed the man from the ER, some months ago. "I faced a health and emotional crisis," he said. "I'd lost faith in people, so I disguised myself to test their sincerity. I ended up in Eastfield General's ER on a stormy night." Whispers rippled through the crowd. Sophie's eyes widened. "It's him." Nathaniel's gaze locked onto hers. "A nurse treated me with compassion, not judgment, as if my life mattered. She restored my faith in kindness." The room hushed. Ethan looked stunned. Glancing between them, Nathaniel continued, voice thick. "The donation I made was to ensure that nurse could continue her mission without financial burdens. She gave me hope, and I wanted to return the favor." He thanked Sophie publicly, calling her the nurse who helped a man she thought was homeless. Applause erupted. Sophie stood, overwhelmed by shock, embarrassment, and gratitude. Nathaniel stepped down, meeting her halfway. He took her hand, speaking softly over the noise. "I never thanked you properly." Her throat tightened. She recalled his fragility, the vending machine snack she'd shared. "Alexander Carter," she whispered, stunned. He nodded, apologetic. "I had to test people's sincerity. It's complicated." They moved to a quieter corner. "I don't understand," Sophie said. "You're a millionaire." "But that night," Nathaniel explained, "I lost my brother a year ago. It made me question everyone's motives, friends, partners. I stepped away, disguised myself, to see if kindness existed without money. Sophie remembered his smooth hands, his dignity. It clicked. You left so suddenly. I worried. His gaze softened. I panicked. You saw my vulnerability, and I wasn't ready. But I never forgot you, especially when I learned about your struggles, your mother's illness. The crowd pressed in, but Nathaniel led her to the hotel's terrace. Cool night air greeted them, city lights twinkling below. I sent that check, hoping you'd accept it, he said. The fundraiser was a chance to thank you publicly. But there's more I want to offer. Sophie's cheeks flushed. You've changed my life, my mother's. He took her hands. Your compassion changed mine. They spoke in hushed tones. Sophie shared her struggles, her mother's illness, hospital bureaucracy. Nathaniel listened, empathetic, revealing his brother's death and his disillusionment. A silence fell, heavy with emotion. Nathaniel pulled a velvet box from his pocket. Sophie, he said, voice trembling, my gratitude goes beyond money. Your kindness shattered my cynicism. It may seem sudden, but life's too short. Will you marry me? He opened the box, revealing a diamond ring. Sophie's breath caught, tears welling. Her mind screamed it was too fast, but her heart recalled his impact. I'm overwhelmed, she said. I barely know you, yet. He stood firm. I don't want to pressure you. I just needed you to know. She gently covered the ring. Can I have time to think? Relief crossed his face. Of course. My feelings won't change. They stood, hands entwined, the ring glimmering between them. Sophie returned home in a daze, placing the ring box beside the check. For days, she balanced work and meetings with Nathaniel in quiet settings. Their conversations deepened. He shared his family's legacy, his wealth's burdens. She spoke of her father's death, her nursing passion, her mother's struggles. Rumors swirled at the hospital. Some accused her of chasing money. Others championed their story. Ethan avoided her, humiliated. Sophie introduced Nathaniel to Margaret, who beamed at him. You're the one who saved us, she said, teary. Nathaniel took her hand. Your daughter saved me first. Over time, Sophie and Nathaniel connected, deeply, sharing a passion for helping those in need. He proposed a charity for homeless patients, inspired by her compassion. One sunny afternoon in a rose garden, he revisited his proposal. I don't want to pressure you, but is there hope? Sophie smiled, retrieving the ring from her purse. I was afraid of what people would think, our differences. But I love who you are, Nathaniel, not what you have. She slipped on the ring. Yes, I'll marry you. Laughter and tears mingled as he hugged her, the rose's fragrance enveloping them. They wed in a small autumn ceremony, Margaret walking Sophie down the aisle with a cane. Close friends and family gathered, under a flower-draped arbor. Their vows echoed their journey, compassion, faith, love. They founded a charity for patients in financial hardship, mirroring Sophie's kindness. Thank you for joining Sophie and Nathaniel's story, where one act of kindness changed their lives forever. Subscribe to our Kindness Power channel for more tales of compassion, perseverance, and unexpected twists of fate.